My name is Denisa Perrin. I'm the head of unit of the EU and place-based innovation ecosystems in the EISMEA agency, and it will be my pleasure to walk you through the day today. We have an impressive number of registrations today. Over 2,000 people actually expressed their interest in the session, which already shows the enormous potential of the valleys. Please note that the session will be recorded. And I'm pleased that today we have together with us Anna Panagopoulou, the director in one of our parent DGs, DG R&I, but also we have together with us Nicola de Michelis, the director in the other parent DG, and the Directorate General for Region Policy. Let me kickstart the session today with Anna. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Denise, and good morning to everyone. Actually, I'm extremely happy that I am passing a few messages to you in this info day, where the aim is through the call for proposals of I3 and European Innovation Ecosystem to establish regional innovation valleys in Europe. And today, my colleagues will give you all the details of how you can apply and how you can be successful on these calls. So the purpose of my presence here is, first of all, to encourage you to consider applying for the calls. And secondly, to explain to you what is the political narrative and why we want to have regional innovation valleys across Europe and how we think the calls will contribute to the establishment of these regional innovation valleys in Europe. As you know, Europe is very good in developing scientific knowledge. Nevertheless, we are not always able to capitalize on the excellent researchers and innovators that we have across Europe. And in particular, it's not always easy to make possible to transfer the innovation that is developed in one region in Europe to other regions in Europe, and also to scale up this innovation and to put it in the market at European level. Innovation divide, it's very well known across Europe. And we know very much also that if we want to keep the talent and if we want to attract even new talents in Europe and to develop new opportunities in European market for innovative products, we need to do something to address the issue of fragmentation of innovation ecosystem and to bring closer the different innovators and innovation actors that they are allocated, established in the different regions, and to work together. We also know that the various regions have a huge potential to invest on research and innovation activities, and in particular, to help innovation companies and innovation actors, including also universities, SMEs, to work together and to help them to deliver innovative products in a specific area. So, in the context of the new European Innovation Agenda that the Commission has adopted on the 5th of July 2022, we have put 5 main flagships actions where we would like to work together with the member states in order to upgrade the innovation potential in Europe and specifically to focus on deep tech innovation in Europe. And those 5 flagships, the one is about scaling up investment. The second one is about do more about regulatory sandboxes and experimentation facilities. The third one is indeed about addressing the issue of regional innovation fragmentation, the fragmentation of the ecosystem, and promote more cohesion among the different ecosystem. The fourth one is about talents, what we can do more about bringing talents in Europe and create the potential of entrepreneurial and deep tech talents in Europe. And the fifth one is about what we can do more in the context of the policy making, including also what we can do more about developing data as a basis for policy making in Europe. So, regional innovation ecosystem is the reply that we want to give to the fragmentation of the ecosystems. And through the calls, we expect that regions, lower performing regions with higher performing regions, they will work together in order to deliver concrete innovative products in 2 or 3 distinguished areas. So our invitation to you is to come together to work together and to try to build up an European innovation ecosystem where innovative products could move from one region to the other and could be scaled up at European level. So in practice, through the call for proposals under the European innovation ecosystem, which is under the responsibility of DG Research and Innovation, we expect that 5 regions will work together and will co-finance the activities that they're under the responsibility in the calls for proposals with 50% co-financing. And of course, the innovators, innovation actors of these regions, they have to be also participating in this call for expression of interest, call for proposals, and they have to work together in order to deliver the innovative products. There are also in parallel the I3 instrument, which the nature is different and complementary to the one of European innovation ecosystem. In order not to be confused, you have been probably aware that on the 28th of March, we have launched together with the Committee of Regions, the 2 commissioners, Commissioner Gabler and Commissioner Ferreira, a call for expression of interest for regions to become regional innovation valleys. So why we have, in addition to our call for proposals, this call for expression of interest? First, because by expressing the different regions, the interest on what to become regional innovation valleys, their commitments to do so, financial resources commitments, and also the areas in which they would like to focus their activities, we can help the different regions to recognize their partners and to establish consortia and to apply to these calls. So although this is not an obligation for the regions to participate or the applicants to participate to the calls that are published on the 17th of May, we encourage the regions to apply to the call for expression of interest, because this will probably help you to identify your partners in the other regions. The second advice that I would like to give you is that try early to start preparing your proposals and identify your partners. It's not easy, but also it is very important that we have the commitment from the regions and from the managing authorities about bringing the 50% co-funding that is needed for these actions under the European Innovation Ecosystem projects. This is for European Innovation Ecosystem proposals, not for I3 proposals. And there, I think it's also extremely important that you read very well the applications, application form, the Q&As that we have published and we will continue to publish, so that you identify how you will be able to be successful to your proposals. Overall, we plan to allocate the label of regional innovation valleys to those regions that they will be successful in their applications to the call for proposals. But also, there is a possibility through the call for expression of interest to receive this label. So in other words, if you apply for the call for proposals and at the same time for the call for expression of interest, there is a possibility that if there is not enough budget for you to finance under the call for proposals, or if you are not considered mature enough for finance to be financed, if you apply for the call for expression of interest and you can demonstrate the commitment to become a regional innovation valley, that you receive the label. So my advice to you is to take the opportunity of applying both in the call for proposals and the call for expression of interest, which will give you 2 ways to receive the label if you are successful with your commitments, and or if you're also able to submit a good, a mature proposal for funding. With these words, I would like to wish you a lot of success in this open day today, but also to wish you a lot of success with your preparations and the applications to the call for proposals that they have been launched on the 17th of June in relation to European Innovation Ecosystem work program, but also to I3 work program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for your introduction. So before we dive into the details of the different calls that Anna has just introduced, let me please stop here for a few minutes and see what are the housekeeping rules. Please know that the whole session is recorded today, and also that your camera and microphone are switched off by default. So this is what we have already done. Please feel free to join the conversation at Sli.do with the event code EU Innovation Agenda. This is where you can ask all your questions. Once you enter the Slido, please select one of the rooms, either for the European Innovation Ecosystems call or for the I3 call. And given that this meeting is recorded, if you don't want your name to appear in the recording, please submit your questions in Slido as anonymous, so you don't need to show your name if you don't wish so. And also a small reminder, this info session covers exclusively the calls for proposals under the ecosystem, European Innovation Ecosystem Work Program, and the I3 instrument calls that are part of the innovation valleys. And my team will explain how we can build the initiative together through these two calls. We have a very, very packed agenda today, and we will start with the European Innovation Ecosystem call. Then we will answer your questions related to the European Innovation Ecosystem call. And then we jump directly to the Interregional Innovation Investment Instrument calls, where colleagues will walk you through the calls. Again, you will be able to ask your questions afterwards. And Nicola de Michelis, Director from the Directorate General for Regional Policy, will close the session today. So we are still more or less on time. I will also be very cautious about the time. So when colleagues will see me on the camera, it means that they have 2 minutes left for their presentation, so that we really have sufficient time for the questions and when we finish at midday sharp. With this, I give the floor to Cristina Nanu, the project advisor in the EISMEA agency, who will walk you through the European Innovation Ecosystem call on what we call the co-fund that is related to the regional innovation valleys. The floor is yours, Cristina.
Thank you, Denisa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cristina Nanu. I will present you the European Innovation Ecosystem call related to the regional innovation valleys. And we can go to the next slide. Yes, in my presentation, I will share with you some information about the call and the financial support to third parties element of the call. I will give you some information about the templates of proposals that applicants need to use. I will share with you some frequently asked questions that will be useful for you and provide some clarifications to the call text. Of course, we will also have the Slido questions. And in the end, there is a slide with some definitions relevant to the call that will be useful for you. Next slide. We will start with the first part. Here you can see some basic information about the call. It is a program co-fund action with a 50% EU funding rate, which applies horizontally to all beneficiaries and all activities. So we expect the beneficiaries to be able to provide the remaining 50% of the budget. The call opening date was last week, the 17th of May, and the call is closing the 17th of October, meaning that the applicants have 5 months to prepare their proposals. The time to inform is 5 months from the call deadline. So we expect to inform about the results of the evaluation by end of March 2024. And the signature of the grant agreements is expected by end of June 2024. About the budget, since the expected EU contribution per project is 8 to 12 million euros and the total indicative budget is 60 million euros, we expect 6 grants to be signed. So we can possibly see big projects under the call from around 16 to 24 million euros total budget, of course, with a 50% co-fund rate. About the project duration, the applicants, we encourage you to consider projects of duration of 3 to 5 years. Next slide, please. So who can apply? This relates to the consortium composition. As you know, the standard eligibility conditions are described in Horizon Europe General Annex B. But in this call, we have a specificity, we have an exception. The action has a minimum requirement, the participation as beneficiaries of at least 5 national or regional innovation authorities from at least 5 different member states or associated countries, of which at least 2 are representing a moderate or emerging innovator region, and at least 1 is representing a strong or innovation leader innovator region. About the reference documents that we will use for the eligibility check of proposals, the Regional Innovation Scoreboard is taken as a reference, and in case of entities representing national authorities, we will consider the European Innovation Scoreboard. Here, the applicants, you should be careful to use as a reference the latest version of the documents at the time of the call closure. For your information, we expect the new version of the Regional Innovation Scoreboard to be published in June. So please be careful and be cautious and check in case your region has changed status in relation to innovation. So in case, let's go back to the reference documents. In case there are associated countries which are not included in any of the previous references, meaning the Regional Innovation Scoreboard and the European Innovation Scoreboard, then the Global Innovation Index and the participation of the country in Horizon Europe program will be considered. Next slide, please. So to continue with the question, who can apply, but this time in relation to the type of factors that can participate in the call, the topic is mainly focused on regional aspects of innovation. So it's primarily targeted at national and regional innovation authorities. Mainly, we talk about regional authorities at NUTS 2 level in line with the Regional Innovation Scoreboard, because the Regional Innovation Scoreboard includes mainly that NUTS 2 level regions. So we talk about the target group is mainly managing authorities, innovation authorities, and any public organization or body who shape innovation policies, programs, and provide funding. And of course, they're able to provide the remaining 50% co-funding. However, please, that this is not restrictive. It doesn't mean that the call is focused only on national or regional authorities as beneficiaries. This is just the minimum eligibility requirement, the minimum eligibility condition of having at least 5 national or regional authorities from 5 different member states or associated countries. So apart from that, of course, any other innovation stakeholder from the quadruple helix, including universities, SMEs, associations, clusters, research and technological organizations, they are eligible to participate as beneficiary, as long as, of course, there are some conditions. They're established in Horizon Europe eligible countries, and they are able to provide the 50% co-funding budget. Here you can see a link for the eligible countries in the slide. You will have access to this slide. So by clicking here, you will have immediate access to the eligible countries. So any other entity from non-eligible to Horizon Europe countries can also participate in the project, but only as associated partner with their own costs. For example, entities that are established in third countries not associated so far with Horizon Europe. So here I would like to clarify that in the call, we mentioned in the scope the target groups. These are just indicative and not restrictive. There is no legally binding condition on the text. So please be careful on this point. We can go to the next slide. So about the main objective of this particular action, the action is contributing, as also Anna mentioned before, to the objectives of the new European Innovation Agenda, in particular to Flagship 3 on accelerating and strengthening the European innovation ecosystem across EU, including, of course, the deep tech innovation, and towards addressing the innovation divide and tackling the most important, the most burning today's challenges that EU is facing. So this action is contributing to the creation of these regional innovation valleys that we speak about today. And the aim is actually to increase the inclusiveness in EU by involving different regions with lower innovation performances, and to build on bringing together different stakeholders from the quadruple helix to have joint actions, joint action plans based, of course, in their smart specialization priorities, in their competitive advantage areas, based on their strengths, in order to support these EU priorities. So, as Anna mentioned, the successful applicants of this call will be therefore recognized as regional innovation valleys. Next slide, please. So about the expected outcomes, we expect regions to come together, to join forces and define the visions and the strategies that they will implement in order to increase their innovation cohesion and, of course, to enhance the coordination and directionality of their investments and policies, which is a criterion in order to become a regional innovation valley. So the aim, as I said before, is to increase the inclusiveness and have more connected, more dynamic, more open, more inclusive, more efficient innovation ecosystems in line with the new European innovation agenda. So also proposals will need to enhance this collaboration and also to enhance complementarities and synergies. We would like to see proposals focusing notably in thematic and technological areas, including, of course, deep tech, that will be critical for technology and industrial EU value chains, either existing or emerging ones. The collaboration, of course, should be built on priorities of regions, on smart specialization priorities, and on partnership for regional innovation in case they participated in this pilot. Also, the proposal should be clear how the applicants are aiming to tackle these challenges that are relevant to EU priorities, for example, the green and digital transition, social transition, resilient society, contribution towards the net zero objective, in order to have an EU open strategic autonomy. So also proposal should increase their innovation capacities, including in deep tech, in member states and associated countries. And we would like to see how the private sector is involved in this call. We would like to strengthen the link with the private sector, because as Anna mentioned, EU is leader in scientific publications in the world, but these are not translated as we wish into innovation projects. So it's important to create this networking among the regions, these framework conditions and this favorable environment in order to allow innovators to bring their ideas into the market. So also proposals should enhance links, better links with different territories, the emerging and moderate innovator regions, together with strong and innovation leaders regions, and also together with different actors from across the quadruple helix, We would like to flag to you the need to focus mainly on those actors that are currently missing or underrepresented in the European innovation ecosystems. For example, innovation procurers, investors, foundations, rural actors, very important, women-led startups, civil society, etc. Last but not least, since we are talking about a co-fund scheme, co-investments are key in this topic. So we would like to see the co-fund scheme as a means to get more funding in this call, to foster and leverage funding at all levels, at EU, national, regional, but also private funds to come in, to complement the Horizon Europe support that we provide via this call. So we expect to achieve economies of scale by gathering funds into a single joint effort. Next slide, please. In short, what we want to achieve with this topic, we want to bring together the authorities in charge of public, regional, national or local innovation policies and programs. Of course, with the participation of the private sector, as I mentioned, SMEs, business, other companies, associations, and research and innovation actors, academia, research and technological organizations, for example, to come together in order jointly to implement this strategic long-term program of activities. We call them action plans, with the aim to foster innovation deployment and innovation development, and to tackle these burning challenges that we are facing at EU, national, regional, and also local level. Here, I would like to highlight that we have national and regional authorities primarily based on the eligibility criterion, but the local aspect is also of paramount importance. So the call is challenge-based, and with that, we can go to the next slide. So what will be the content of the proposals? The proposal should present the applicants' joint strategic visions and their commitment to enhance the coordination and directionality of their investments and policies in research and innovation. And they should present their proposed joint innovation program of activities. This program should be already agreed before the preparation of the proposal, before the submission of the proposal. So it means that this program, this action plan should be mature. So the applicant should have already reached an agreement on what they want to achieve, on the selected thematic or technological areas they want to collaborate in order to be able to present these concrete action plans. Of course, the plans should be further detailed on an annual basis during the implementation of the project. We have foreseen, and you will see that in the program conditions, the annual program of activities to be submitted on a yearly basis as deliverable. Also, the proposal should explain the need and the reasons for the action plan selection. It should be scalable and have a strong EU added value. After all, we are talking about Horizon Europe project. The proposal should also explain the need and the reasons for selecting the proposed strategic, thematic, technological area of collaboration in the action plan. Again, to repeat, in line, of course, with the smart specialization strategies. And proposal should also clarify the potential for growth and competitiveness in this target sector or sectors that they will select, and the expected impact on EU challenges. They should also highlight how it will contribute to innovation priorities of common interest, to EU strategic priorities. I mentioned before the green and the digital and social transitions, and also where this makes sense, also to Horizon Europe missions. Also, the proposal should highlight how this cooperation will improve the efficiency and performance of the innovation ecosystems, trying to foster the interconnection and scale up and contribution to these EU priorities. Also, we expect the applicants to include in the proposal a further description of these activities, the process that will be followed, the different research and innovation assets that will be mobilized. And we would like to highlight that activities should ensure these 3 points that we mentioned here: inclusiveness and diversity, meaning that we want to see different actors of the quadruple helix, different territories, and we would like to see different innovation stakeholders to be taken on board for the proposal. The second point is the participation of the private actors, as we said. And the third one is about complementarity and synergies with other funds, EU, public or private, contribution to policy strategies and programs at national, regional or local level. For example, the smart specialization strategies that I repeated several times, EIT Kicks, European Innovation, Startup Villages, Enterprise Europe Network, for example, etc. Also, the proposal should present and explain how the consortium plans to implement these activities. For example, assets to be mobilized, resources that they plan to introduce in the proposal, and they should include clear targets and different verifiable indicators. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals, the EU Taxonomy on Sustainable Finance, and so on. And also the proposal should ensure, the applicants should ensure their long-term commitment towards these joint cooperation activities set up in the frame of the projects. This can be done as with a letter of intent that we foresee for the applicants together with the application. We can go to the next slide. So the project will support, as we said, the implementation of an action plan. By action plan, we mean an overarching long-term program of joint activities towards innovation, development and deployment. These joint activities, you can see in this slide, are split into 2 provisions, 2 implementable parts, and will include, the first part is to the left, is the core collaborative activities, and the joint interregional projects is the second part. Let's start with the first part, the core collaborative activities to the left. This part includes horizontal actions. We expect the applicants to foresee in their proposals this kind of CSA, coordination and support action, let's say this kind of CSA type actions. Here are just some examples mentioned also in the call text. For instance, we would like to see applicants joining forces and having joint activities in joint public procurement, for example, in joint knowledge assets, interconnection of innovation hubs, or having joint market analysis to access new finance or new markets, activities to foster training and skills development, for instance, for startups, for the scale up, on setting up business plans. These are just some examples. It's absolutely a bottom-up activity. It's up to the applicants to decide which are these horizontal actions that best fit to their needs and gaps. Of course, applicants are suggested to use this first part to have further concretization agreement on this joint action plan, or to use it to prepare the setting up of these joint calls that will be necessary for these joint interregional projects. In relation to the second part to the right, the joint interregional projects. So here we have a specific requirement We need at least 50% of the total budget. The total budget is equal to the action plan budget, as it mentioned in the call. So we expect at least 50% of the total budget to be allocated to these interregional innovation projects. These projects are expected to be selected and funded via competitive joint open calls that will be implemented and will be implemented by end beneficiaries via financial support to third parties. We mentioned in the call that we need at least 3 proposals that will be then selected and funded as a result of these calls. These projects are expected to be similar to Horizon Europe innovation actions with a TRL technology readiness level 6 to 8, meaning that we expect the collaboration of research and innovation actors, academia, RTOs, research centers, etc., from the participating regions for the development and deployment of technologies and innovation, including breakthrough and disruptive innovation. Also, each project should focus preferably in one, or if needed, more than one selected thematic or technological area, including deep tech. That these areas are actually the burning challenges at EU level at this moment, that we would like applicants to ask applicants to consider as main thematic areas. These are the 5 that are presented in this slide: reducing reliance on fossil fuels, increasing global food security, mastering the digital transformation and cybersecurity, improving healthcare and achieving circularity. Also, we expect to have concrete and tangible outcomes by the end of the projects. And we expect the projects to be managed by the beneficiaries in a coordinated manner as a portfolio of projects. And what we mean by that, we mean that the applicant should identify and establish links among these projects and with other EU national or regional projects, either in the similar thematic technological area or in other complementary areas. We can go to the next slide. So here, let me provide you an example of a proposal of budget allocation that we hope to facilitate your understanding. So we have this scenario, let's say, of a project of a total budget of 20 million euro. Considering the horizontal 50% single co-fund rate, which applies to all beneficiaries and activities, this means that from the 20 million euros, the 50% million will come from the EU funding, and the 10 million will come from the remaining complementary funding that the national, regional, or private actors need to provide as beneficiaries of this call of this project. So for the implementation of the project, the consortium may decide, for example, to allocate for core collaboration activities, let's say 30%, 6 million of the total budget, and for the second part, for the interregional projects, 70% of the budget, which is 14 million. Here we see that this 40 million, 70%, is respecting the rule of at least 50% of the total budget to this part. So in both cases, the 50% single co-fund rate applies. And we can go to the next slide. Now we can go, we finished with the call information, some clarifications about the financial support and third parties. So the proposal should include the provisions and modalities for the selection and funding of this project. So it's up to the consortium to decide on how the call will be implemented. The financial support to third parties can only be provided in the form of grants. So we want to see interregional multi-beneficiary projects. So the recipients of financial support to third parties must be research and innovation actors, I mentioned also before, established in the participating regions covered by the consortium. Here on the question how much, we have an exception. We have the 60,000 euros of financial regulation do not apply. The maximum amount of financial support to third parties for each third party may not exceed 600,000 per beneficiary and per proposal, meaning here the grant agreement later on. And please be careful that this amount refers to the total participation of the final recipient in all interregional innovation projects of a proposal or of a grant. So, for example, you can see in this slide, let's continue from the previous example. Here in this joint interregional projects, the applicants may have decided to allocate 70% of the budget, and they have three, let's call them sub-projects. So in this case, a recipient X, for example, a university, that participates to all three interregional projects of a grant can get maximum 600,000 euros. We can go to the next slide. So here, as we mentioned, the call requirement is to allocate at least 50% of the total budget to the joint interregional projects via financial support to third parties. So how you can ensure, how the applicants can ensure that this requirement is met in the proposal. You can see a budget table of part A in this slide that includes an extra column related to financial support to third parties. Here, the applicants must first introduce the other amounts in this table for personnel, subcontracting, purchasing costs, etc. And then based on the total eligible costs, the applicants will need to allocate at least 50% to the financial support to third parties to be in line with the call. Then, of course, the funding rate. We can go to the next slide. Yes, then the funding rate 50% applies to get the maximum EU contribution. So here I would like to clarify that by action plan budget, we mean the total project budget, which is equal to the total eligible costs are shown in this table. Next slide, please. So the TRL levels are presented here, the technology readiness level for this joint interregional projects. So we expect TRL from 6 to 8, high and close to the market TRL in this call. So we expect from TRL 6, from technology development and demonstration of prototype to go up to the qualification and completion of the technology in order to go further into the market. Next slide, please. So here, about the rules and the legal base for the financial support to third parties, since the call does not specify these requirements, does not specify and does not have specific binding obligations for the beneficiaries for the financial support to third parties implementation. Here, we must say that it's up to the consortia to define which are going to be these call conditions. So they're fully responsible for the open calls they publish. And here at the proposal level, we will have a dedicated annex on this point to be filled in and to be uploaded for the proposal to be complete. You can see also the legal base for this part of the proposal. We would like to ask you to consider the financial regulation, the general annexes to Horizon Europe, and also the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement. These are links, and again, you can have immediate access from the PowerPoint presentation. Next slide, please. So here, this is a very condensed slide, I must say, but we thought that it would be important to have in one single slide the most important points that the applicants need to consider from the legal base. So the consortia should ensure that the proposal includes information on implementation modalities. In particular, the proposal should comply with the 6 mandatory elements of Article 6.2d1. Also, they should ensure ensure that the conditions of the Horizon Europe general annexes are fulfilled. And we can go to the next slide. I think that the applicants can take a look at these obligations later on. So about the proposal template, some information, and we can go in exactly to the next slide. So for the co-fund proposal, the applicants must submit a Part A, which includes administrative forms and budget. This is the usual Part A with information about the applicants and where you can find this table about the budget that I talked about before, excuse me. So also there is a Part B that includes technical information, where includes the main part of the proposal actually. The maximum number of pages is 70. Please be careful because in the portal, the applicants can only see the standard co-fund template. Please do not be confused with that, since we're not allowed to put in the portal the customized versions. Only when you will be able to go into the platform for the submission of proposals, then you will only be able to see the customized version for the submission of proposals for this call. Apart from Part A and Part B, we would like to ask the applicants also to submit some annexes. The annual work plan is the first one. So we understand, as I mentioned, that it's not possible for regions to provide a very detailed action plan for all the period of the project from 3 to 5 years. So to be flexible, a more detailed action plan will be requested as a yearly deliverable in order to provide more information at annual basis. The second annex is an annex about financial support to third parties, as I mentioned. So the third one is a letter of intent that this is necessary as we talk about co-fund actions. So a letter of intent needs to be submitted by the coordinator on behalf of all the beneficiaries. Additional information should be also provided to complement the information that already will be provided from Part A and Part B. We want this information, it's actually an Excel file, very easy, I must say, to complete, since it's necessary to gather and then make statistical analysis of some information for policy making. We can go to the next slide. This is just basic information about the letter of intent template. So you will see that the letter of intent includes as a main text the one that is presented here. It should be filled in and duly signed and dated by the coordinator of the project on behalf of the beneficiaries. With the letter of intent, the consortium confirms its engagement and commitment in providing 50% of the EC funding for the proper implementation of the project. So at the level of proposal preparation, we wanted to be flexible and to facilitate the regions, the applicants, to submit only one single document rather than individual letters of intent. But for the successful proposals and before signing the grant agreement, the beneficiaries will need to provide letters of commitment for the remaining budget, covering, however, only the first 2 years of implementation of the project, since we understand that it's long-term projects. We're talking about 3 to 5 year project, and it's not easy for regions to commit for all this period of time for the budget. Also, additional information is mandatory. For example, we ask the applicants in this single page, single document, to provide information about the role of each beneficiary very shortly, and also the source of the funding of the required 50% complementary funding to be provided, as this is requirement of the call specifications. We can go to the next slide. So also for statistical purposes, we need to gather, as we said, this additional information. So this is in short in this slide, what kind of information we expect for you to fill in this Excel file. So we expect for you to provide some information on the proposal, the thematic area of the proposal. Here you can see these 5 mentioned before EU burning challenges. If it's more than one, it can also be specified here. So also some information on the beneficiaries, the regions, if the beneficiary is national or regional authority, for example, if the participant region has participated to the call for expression of interest to become a regional innovation valley. These are just simple and easy to reply points with a yes or a no. Also some data on participant regions, for example, its links to cohesion policy, NATS, the status, for example, more developed, transition, less developed, and the categorization of the region in relation to the Regional Innovation Scoreboard or the European Innovation Scoreboard, for example, modest, emerging, strong, leader innovation regions. This will allow us to have these statistics as I mentioned before. So we can go to the next slide, some frequently asked questions, and we can go immediately to the next slide here. So here, these questions and answers will facilitate you to understand better the context. The first question is, can a proposal focus in more than one thematic or technological area? So the applicants are encouraged to prepare proposal focused on and targeted to one thematic area, since the proposal will be evaluated on the basis of its clearly targeted objectives and its realistic implementation. However, depending on the challenge, proposals may cover more than one thematic area, especially if these are complementary ones, for example, let's say food security and digital transition, etc. So these areas can be indicated in the Excel file with additional information as annex to Part B. But please consider to be focused and targeted and realistic for the evaluations. The second question, can an applicant participate in several proposals? The answer is yes. This may also increase the chances, of course, of a successful proposal, but this is allowed as long as the proposals are different, they have different activities, different objectives, and the work for the work to be carried out, and there is no double funding of the same cost item. Also, how the next question is how the co-fund call is linked to the preparation action. The CSA calls in 2021 and 23. So we said that the co-fund call is about implementation of these joint action plans that are quite mature. The applicants know what they want to achieve. However, as it's not always evident that all regions have already established collaboration, we gave the chance via these schemes of coordinated and support actions, these preparatory actions, for regions to join forces and focus on the preparation of these action plans. And to go to the next question, will successful projects of the preparatory action get automatically financing for their implementation via the co-fund call that we are launching today? We must say there is no direct link among the calls. There is no automatic funding. All these calls are actually competitive open calls. For the 2023 call, the preparatory action, the proposals are currently under evaluation, so there couldn't be a way to have results for the co-fund call of today. But operationally, for the 2021 successful preparatory projects that started in 2022, maybe they have already some outcomes and some established collaboration with the partners to feed in the preparation of a proposal under the Regional Innovation Valleys calls. Of course, for this, there will be a need for some adjustments of these proposals. And we can go to the next slide. Can only national regional innovation authorities participate under the call? The answer is no. We repeated it several times. Any other relevant legal entities that are established in member state or associated countries or other Horizon Europe eligible countries can be beneficiaries in the action as long as the minimum requirements are met, the minimum eligibility criterion, and they can provide the 50% co-funding. So there are no other restrictions about there is no other restrictions about the coordinator, who is going to be the coordinator, the role of the different partners, or the type of the partners. Also, we must say that cities and municipalities, local authorities can participate as long as they can meet the requirements we met, meaning including also the 50% co-funding. Please be careful because the inclusiveness is a point of evaluation. So we would like also to see how the private actors and the other research and innovation actors will be part of this proposal. The next question, what is the optimal size of the consortium? We cannot reply to this question. This is a new pilot action. We will all learn from the submission of proposals. We do not have, unfortunately, significant history data to be shared on past participation. So we have only the minimum eligibility requirement and not a maximum amount of partners to indicate here. Next slide, please. So about the financial support to third parties, the first question, is the financial support to third parties part mandatory under the call? We must say that the FSTP is an integral part of the call, so operationally, yes. The proposal should include these provisions and modalities for the competitive selection and funding of these 3 interregional innovation projects. Also, this will be implemented, as we said, via joint open calls. And the next question, what FSTP rules requirements apply to these calls? We said that the only restriction of the call is that we need this part, the FSTP part, to absorb at least 50% of the total eligible costs, and that the maximum amount per end beneficiary and per grant is 600,000 euro. So apart from that, I mean, there is no other requirement, and consortia are fully responsible for these joint calls. However, these modalities, the setting up of these calls, it's of paramount importance, these requirements to be in line with the legal base that I mentioned in previously. Next, we have another question, how extra public and private funding can be leveraged. So here we just want to highlight that it's up to the applicant to decide about these modalities for the FSTP part. They may have also the option to example possibility to leverage extra funding. So in the case of public funding, how they can leverage extra public funding, possibly by launching open calls targeting to additional regions. And in this way, they can attract more regions to participate other than those participating already in the proposal. Also, it's up to the consortium to leverage extra private funding, for example, by adjusting the FSTP funding rate, the financial support to third parties rate, in line with the legal requirements. In any case, the obligations of the grant agreement are only vis-a-vis the beneficiaries and not the third parties or the associated partners to complement. We can go to the next slide, the co-funding rate. So how the applicants can cover the co-financing of 50%. We must say that this is entirely up to the beneficiaries to choose the source. It can be any, it can be any public or private resources. And I see Denisa, so I will finish my presentation. So is there any possibility of combining Horizon Europe and cohesion policy funds? This is very important important question. The answer is yes, provided, of course, that it complies with the Common Provisions Regulation. And in 2022, there was a publication of a synergies notice that here is the link. You can find more information about that. And with that, I finished my presentation. We can go to the next slide. Here, just for your information, it is just an annex with some definitions. These are already also included in Part B of proposals. So these are some examples. I will not go through these definitions, but you can use them as a reference during the preparation of your proposals. So thank you very much. This is all from my part, and I think now it's the questions and answers session.
Thank you, Christina, for really your perfect extensive presentation and for really keeping an eye on the timing. So we have time now for questions that you had an opportunity to submit via the Sli.do. And I will see them coming. I will be asking Christina and maybe also colleagues from the team if they want to jump in. So let's start with the first one. Is it possible to mobilize the European Regional Development Fund managed by our region to co-finance the project?
Yes, it was actually the last question on in my slides. Yes, it is possible to mobilize extra ERDF funding, cohesion policy funding, as long as it complies with the Common Provision Regulation. In my slide, I included the relevant articles, and I would like to ask applicants also to pay attention to the General Block Exemption Regulation, in particular Article 25C.
Perfect. Many thanks, Christina. Next question. Clusters are identified as associated partners. Do you know whether they will still be able to position themselves as beneficiaries or third parties?
Yes, we said that clusters clusters we know play a paramount importance in the European innovation ecosystems. So they can participate both as beneficiaries in the call based on the call requirements, having in mind that this should be on top of the minimum eligibility requirements to have at least 5 national and regional authorities, and also can participate as third parties in the interregional projects. So here I would like to clarify an important point in relation to the call text. In the call text, in the scope, in the target group, it is mentioned that the topic is targeted at national and regional authorities, and other entities may participate as associated partners. We would like to clarify here in this event that the wording is not matching with the intentions of the call, since the reader actually can link it with the definition of associated partners under Horizon Europe. The intention here is to highlight that, of course, additional partners can also participate on top of the minimum eligibility conditions. So the answer is yes, clusters can participate as beneficiaries.
Excellent, many thanks. Next question. Can interregional projects funded with FSCP gather several entities from different regions in the same country?
Well, the answer is yes, as long as they are beneficiaries in the project representing these regions. Of course, the minimum eligibility criteria are met. So, as we said, the reference document for the selection for the eligibility criterion is that we would like to have, it's the Regional Innovation Scoreboard. So, if we have beneficiaries, if we have regional authorities as beneficiaries, they can provide financial support to third parties from their participating regions. Mm-hmm. But if we have national authorities, they can provide financial support to third parties from all regions of the same country.
Very clear. I see we have lots of questions about the FSCP and the cascade funding. So the next one continues with the FSCP. And it's concerning what will be the modalities for organizing the cascade funding to build fund interregional projects?
Yes, well, we said that the consortium has the full responsibility for the preparation and publication of the joint calls, including the implementation modalities and provisions, and they should be careful to be in line with the legal requirements for the financial support to third parties implementation. We mentioned the financial regulation, the Horizon Europe General Annexes, the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement, but of course they should pay attention to the call requirements for the FSTP part to absorb at least 50% of the total eligible costs. And in relation to the maximum FSTP, the maximum financial support to third parties amount that is 600,000 euros per end beneficiary and per grant.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina. We have one more question about coming from funds about the clusters. I think you already answered it. That clusters, yes, they can be part. Well, I see one more, a bit more technical. Before I get there, in the proposal, do we have to mention these other relevant entities we would like to fund through the interregional projects? So we are still in the FSTP.
Yes, well, I mentioned that there is an extra specific annex, and the applicants will need to fill this specific annex to proposal part B, and to provide information relevant to the implementation modalities and the actors and the activities and the processes. Yes.
Very clear. Thank you. The total indicative budget for the EIE call is 60 million. What form will take the additional 40 million?
Yes, in line with the new European Innovation Agenda that indicates that 100 million euros will be committed from the Horizon Europe budget for the valleys. Of course, we expect more calls in the next work programs, the European Innovation Ecosystems work programs, to commit in order to have this additional 40 million euros. But of course, this is up to RTD, to the Commission, to decide, and the program committee on what specific activities will take place in the next work programs.
Very well, thank you. I don't know whether we have somebody who, is there anybody who would like to complement the answer, but I think it was very clear. And we have a very last question that appears. The 70-page maximum for Part B does not include annexes. Is that correct?
It is correct, indeed. The Part B is only, applicants have only, will have 70 pages to complete, to fill in only for Part B, and the annexes are on top of these 70 pages.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Do we have any other question, or we can move to the next point of the agenda? Christina, I think you were so clear.
Thank you. So I would like to wish to the applicants good luck and to apply, because this is a very interesting call. And we will be here to support also for questions apart from this event, also afterwards via the functional mailbox that you will find in the slides. So
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Excellent. Many thanks, Christina. And now we are moving from Horizon Europe to cohesion policy, because the I3 instrument, this is an instrument of cohesion policy, and I already see on the screen appearing Ramunas Linatas. Over to you, Ramunas. Ramunas, you are here from DG Regional Policy, from the Directorate General, to introduce the instrument a bit from the policy context, because this is the I3 is still something new and not necessarily mainstream under cohesion. The floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Denisa, and good morning to all. We can move to the next slide immediately. So I think the good news for today is that the info day is about the two funding streams for innovation-driven projects. And so far you've heard about the EAE, and I ask for your attention to funding opportunities under the Interregional Innovation Investments, or I3 for short. Eric, Milena, Valentina, and I will walk you through it in the next hour. Can we move to the next slide, please? So yes, so I3 calls are designed to work in collaboration and create complementarities with EIE. Although, while I3 and EIE calls were launched together, they will be implemented according to their own specific and respective mechanism, and each of them will have its specificities. I3 calls follow a very specific cohesion policy mission that you see on the slide, and it focuses on regional innovation disparities. So that's one of the challenges that also Anna mentioned at the beginning that we're trying to address. And the key for successful I3 project is not about the scientific or technological excellence of the proposals, but their potential to generate positive impact in building business-driven European value chains while bridging at the same time innovation divide between the regions. So you've noticed possibly that, or you will notice after the presentation of my colleagues and after their intervention that there could be some thematic similarities between I3 and EIE. So, and that is true. These are very close. But the main difference that I want to highlight is that I3 focuses on close to market innovation projects and projects whose technological readiness levels is at minimum 6. So thematically we are close, but it's very complementary in its nature. Thus, creating new and strengthening the existing value chains and connecting regional innovation ecosystems along smart specialization priorities are the specific objectives we are pursuing under the I3 calls. I3, as Denisa just noted, is indeed a very new instrument, but the calls launched last week were already under the so-called second work program. And the calls launched last week, they build on what we learned from the first calls. And these calls proved to be very popular, not surprisingly, but I think that's a good sign, and we hope that this will continue. The regions and regional innovation stakeholders were very keen on the opportunities awarded for these calls. So we keep what proved to be successful and popular, and we gathered that input through the stakeholder consultations, also expert feedback specifically, and we will continue with the broad focus of the I3 instrument. So thematic priorities of twin transition and smart manufacturing will remain. However, there is a specific emphasis on the burning challenges, the 5 burning challenges that Christina Anna previously outlined already. So linking the two and making these complementarities between the two instruments. What we will continue, since I3 is a new project, is a new instrument. We will continue the capacity building. So the new call will come. So it's not part of today's intervention, but please watch your space. So this is something of a great interest, because what we try to do, as I said, we try to create new links and new value chains. What is new in the published calls is that there is not specifically related to the calls, but our activities where we try to create a community. And so DG Regio, we launched a community of practice that support partnerships. And it's a kind of umbrella for all the regional innovation stakeholders, because, well, it's obvious, we finance consortia, we don't support single beneficiary projects. So this is the project that come to us are already at certain maturity level, and they need to be a consortia and joint ideas interregional element of the proposals. We strengthen in the new calls that were published the cohesion policy dimension, and the simple numerical value for that is that we ask for more less developed regions to be involved in the application. So you'll see that in the call documents. It's obvious, but I think this goes along the lines of what we are trying to achieve for these calls. What we did also, I3 has 2 calls published, so one for the more developed and economic innovation ecosystems and one for the less developed regions. So we equalize the size of a budget, the indicative size of a budget. So it's up to 10 million for both strands. So that's we hope will facilitate and encourage less developed regions to apply even more. And what is also new, we introduced, we updated the rate, 100% rate for the financial support to third parties, or also known as the cascade funding. It's an option. It's not a requirement to have this financial support to third parties, but at least it's now funded 100% within the limits that my colleagues will outline in a minute. And what is also the new novelty that you will see in the call documents that are published is an attempt to simplify the support letter. So it is now also only required from the coordinator, and the other consortium members, they link it, they describe it in their application. So with that, I'll finish, and I pass over to Eric to provide you with more details on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramonas. And now over to colleagues from the agency, going a bit more into the details, of the implementation. We start with Eric. We will continue with Milena. That will really take some time to explain the financial support to third party. That is very different from what you heard under the co-fund from Christina. And then Valentina at the very end will actually make a comparison between the two calls, because today I'm sure you heard so much information, so some comparison would be extremely useful. So Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Denisa, for your introduction, and also thanks, Ramonas, for your setting the scene. I would like to zoom in a little bit into what Ramonas explained already, the new features of i3, and also the differences you will see with the EIE ecosystems co-fund call. So next slide, please. And next one. Yes, so just to put this into perspective, we talked a lot about the innovation valleys so far, and you see here clearly that the valleys are positioned. If you look at the different strands we have under i3, they are positioned at the investment level, meaning that our strand 1 and strand 2A calls, which I will explain in a minute a bit more, these are the project that will lead to the project that we target to as the regional innovation valley recognition, whereas the lower mentioned strands are strand 2B capacity building, and the support facility as part of the technical assistance that we're building up now is there to build the capacity to be able to implement those investment projects. And overall, we have a package of 570 million euros for this multi-annual framework program. Next slide, please. Yes, so again, putting the i3 instrument into the perspective of the new European Innovation Agenda that the colleagues already mentioned. So indeed, the burning challenges that are mentioned in the document in the Commission communication from last year are really the backdrop of what we're trying to achieve. Reducing reliance on fossil fuels and achieving circularity on the environmental part, climate part, trying to improve healthcare, food security, and then mastering also the digital transformation. You probably recognize the transition here, and this is not a coincidence. This is obviously one of the big objectives of the European Union to achieve this transition. And all this, we have to mention also the deep tech as enabler of these different technologies. They are also part of that European Innovation Agenda. Next slide, please. Which dives a bit more into the thematic priorities, which are under the umbrella of the burning and challenges. And you see here that, as in previous cutoffs, as Ramona said, we already started i3 last year, that we have different priorities in green transition, digital transition, and smart manufacturing. So these are the broad lines, and you see already that the priorities are so broad that you will certainly find, as an applicant, a way to cover those topics in one way or another. And what is important here, and we put it in the middle of the icons, the S3 Smart Specialization Strategy. This is really the heart and the core of our strategy. We want the applicants to make sure that the project they submit are actually the areas that they are specialized in and that are confirmed by the authorities in those regions. Next slide, please. Which is a bit busy slide, but let me summarize it in a few words. Basically, you have here what we want in terms of activities. This is really the core of the activities we would like you to engage in, is commercialization. Ramuna's mentioned the closeness to the market. Post prototyping, so we will not fund prototypes as such, but the activities afterwards. And then the demonstration level, all demonstration levels that would help raise the project's TRL level from 6 up to 9. And again, I mention it again because it's so important. We want applicants and the linked regions to invest into in their competitive areas and their smart specialization areas. To give one example, we have for many projects in the hydrogen area. Hydrogen is a very important topic at the moment, and the projects we have, they are clearly show how the entire value chain of hydrogen production and then storage and transport and consumption are reflected in these projects. So these are good examples of what we would like to achieve. Next slide, please. Which is about the key dimensions, indeed, the key performance indicators that you will recognize in the call document. We would like you to set those and to have some baseline data, and then of course to also some target data, target KPIs. You see, for example, here the value chain dimension. Obviously, this is at the core of what we're trying to achieve. Other dimensions like the IPR dimension or the socioeconomic benefits, the gender dimension. But let me focus on the three that are at the heart of I3, because it's the interregional innovation and investment dimensions, and go to the next slide, which is indeed the interregional dimension. Here, we're trying to achieve this. First of all, you see on the left side the various stakeholders of the ecosystems, regional and European ecosystems that we try to bring together, the quadruple helix partnerships, public authorities, research, industry, and end users or civil society. But this is of course, these are the means. Those entities will work together, but we want obviously regions to work together. We want them to work together in shared smart specialization strategies. So strategies either they share it directly or they are complementary. We have also a little bit a different perspective here than in the co-fund, because we're looking here also in terms of eligibility, by the way, for applicants. We're looking at the NUTS level and also at the, let's say, gross national income ratio level. So we're not looking at the scoreboard, the regional scoreboard, but we are looking at economic level development level. So there are, as you know, less developed transition and more developed regions, and so this is important to know when you apply, to have a look at the call conditions. We'll come to that later in a later slide. Next slide, please. Which is the second element of the I3, the innovation dimension. You might have seen this slide before. It's a standard slide, very known, coming from also from the Oslo manual. And you see here that we are certainly very open in terms of innovation and looking forward to applications in various domains. We have to say that the experience shows that product innovation is by far the most prominent case we have in our projects and the running projects. But often process innovation, marketing innovation, organization innovation comes with the product innovation. So it's certainly a nice side effect of innovating in products. Next slide, please. which is about the investment dimension. Again, very important here. And this is also mentioned in the call document, that we want a higher level of investment into companies, especially SMEs, 70% of the total eligible costs, as you will see in the call document. Investments can be tangible or intangible. We want, certainly, because we mentioned the market closeness, we want that there is a perspective, a clear business perspective, investment plan behind, at the backdrop of the project, and then well, also reflected in the TRL level, a certain perspective in terms of time to market. Given the fact that we are talking here about co-funding rates of 70% or 100% per FSTP, but at least there's partly co-funding necessary, you have to think about leverage and, of course, other sources of finance, be they private or public. And then again, we mentioned the multi-level architecture, different levels. Obviously, we want interregional cooperation, but then there's always Europe at the top, and we want, obviously, that you link that to the European challenges that are there. And as we mentioned, cohesion as one of the big elements of I3, territorial impact is certainly something we would like to achieve. Now, what we mentioned here below on what we mean under portfolio approach is a little bit what you heard before from my colleague Christina about the co-fund. We want in the different I3 projects, sub-projects that are the clear projects where investments are made. So it's certainly possible. There are no minimum criteria in terms of number of sub-projects like in the co-fund. But let's say the experience shows that there are often more than one sub-projects under the I3 umbrella project. So to look for market opportunities, going to the market, and removing bottlenecks. Next slide, please. And this is a bit, again, a repetition probably, but only partly because I think Ramon has mentioned, for example, the co-funding rates. This is an important slide because there have been changes compared with the last work program. In the past, we had a difference in terms of the indicative budget for strand 1 and 2A. Now you see also on the left side, both strands, that we now say that 2 to 10 million is a range that is certainly normal for both strands. So giving you much more flexibility to plan your project. And this is, by the way, the EU grant requested. So the maximum would then be, the total budget of the project would be higher, obviously, given that there is co-funding. Then the duration also, we have become more flexible. It used to be 36 months. Now it's between 18 and 36 months. This is also indicative. And then most importantly, and it has been requested by many stakeholders in the past, and we acknowledge that, especially public entities that manage FSTP have been struggling in the past with co-financing the 30% when they finance SMEs, for example, as third parties. So we have increased that to 100%. So the 70% stay the same for the other budget categories. And overall, we have 31 million euros per strand, so also making it equal for both strands. Next slide, which dives a bit more into detail about the different parts. We'll not go so much into detail because we have done that in the past. There's plenty of information you will have in the links at the end. But just to give you some examples of also differences between Horizon and between the co-fund, apart from the part A and part B that you know also from Horizon, there is the difference for the part B that we have not 70 pages, but 60 pages is maximum. So each page counts, as you know, sometimes when you're preparing your proposal. And with part C is a specialty we have on I3, where we ask for some data on the nomenclatura for the nuts, which region is involved, the TRL, and the innovation type, time to market as well, I think. And then there is, in terms of the documents, that the annexes, there is, and this is an important change also to a difference to Horizon that you know from the past. The detailed budget table is a bit more detailed, as the name says. So have a look at that. It will require the tables per partner, not only the overall table. Apart from the CVs, there's, and this is the also a big difference, the letter of support. That is not to confuse with the letter of intent that my colleague Christina mentioned earlier on for the co-fund. Here we're trying to achieve something different. Let me explain it in the next slide. The letter of some endorsement is really there to show that the proposal is in line with the smart specialization strategy of the involved regions, that for sure. And it needs to be submitted by the coordinator and collected and uploaded. It must come from the competent authority, the competent body that implements and manages S3. It is compulsory for the coordinator. That hasn't changed to the past, but, and I think Ramon has mentioned it in this part, it is now optional only for the other partners. And it is only obligatory on the right side. You will see later. Let me just explain first that if you go for this letter in your region, it is enough to have one letter per ecosystem, per region. So if you have, for example, 3 entities in one consortium from the same region, then one entity is enough. What hasn't changed is for the coordinator that this letter must be provided before the call deadline. That's actually a eligibility criterion and very important to respect. Now, what is new is, of course, the new context of the regional innovation valleys and the new European innovation agenda. If you want to be recognized as a valley under I3, and it's you also need to be successful. As for the co-fund, you need to sign the grant agreement, but before that, you are also obliged to sign the letter of endorsement that also the coordinator has to sign. So don't forget that. And also, there's one box where you can tick that you would like actually to be as managing authority, that your region should also be labeled as a valley in case you are successful. Thank you. Next slide. Which puts everything into perspective in the timing. Yeah, just quickly, as we are fully in line with the colleagues and with the co-fund action on the horizon, we indeed opened on the 17th of May, we'll close on the 17th of October, and we expect the results to be sent to all applicants in March. And then with a timely grant agreement preparation, we target a signature for the grants in June next year. And now just, I think, 2 slides missing on, next slide, please, on the differences in this between the strands. Next slide, please. Just a few words about, just to make sure that you understand why we have 2 strands, because it may not be clear from the, we want, because we are under cohesion, and we want to make clear that the focus of the strand 2A is really the less developed regions and their integration into the value chains, and also the support to them. Both strands are value chain projects, of course, but the strand 1 targets on existing value chains, strong, economically strong and more developed actors, where actually less developed regions must be part, but the focus is a bit different. We want to expand the value chains more strand 1, where then 2A it's about integration into value chains and creation of value chains. Next slide. I think that should be the last one from my side. Yes, so the composition of the consortium, indeed. So here there has been a change as well, important for those that know I3 already from the past. So you have the consortium coordinator that must be a non-profit organization or a public authority, by definition also non-profit. But then the new element is that there is a member state organization also allowed. So it's a public law body or a body governed by public law and trusted with a public service. So we made this more flexible, because we have examples of entities that were not officially non-for-profit, but they were clearly had a public mandate. So now this is covered. And in terms of the numbers, that they haven't changed actually to the at least for the 5 legal entities and 5 regions and 3 eligible countries for strand 1 and 332 for strand 2A. What has changed is that we have now at least 2 developed regions for strand 1 and at least 1 more developed for strand 2A. So in order to mix both regions and to have to help cooperation between both types of regions. Thank you, and I'm handing over to my colleague. No, first Denise, I think, and then Milena. Thank you.
Milena, go directly. Thank you, Eric, and many thanks for your effort despite your cold. Milena, go. Over to
Thank you very much, Denise and Eric, for giving me the floor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Milena Stoyanova, proud member of the I3 team at EISMEA. And today I'm happy to share with you some information about the financial support to third parties and how it could be applied in your application to the currently published I3 calls. What is the financial support to third parties, or the so-called cascade funding? This is a mechanism that allows funding to beneficiaries that are not identified in the grant agreement as members of the eligible consortium, meaning that you can choose the financial support to third parties participants later on. You will choose them via publication of your own calls, and you don't have to know now at the proposal stage who will be these recipients. On the other hand, it has to be clear that consortium members cannot be recipients of financial support to third parties. Next slide, please. It's very important to highlight that the financial support to third parties is not compulsory for your I3 projects. You just have the possibility to use them if you feel that the design of your application would fit together with the FSCP. How to use FSCP? It would allow you to select the SMEs during the implementation phase. As I said, you don't have to know which will be these SMEs at the proposal stage in order to contribute to the investment project by carrying out necessary and missing tasks. Here I can give you some examples what the FSCP could be used for. To complete a specific value chain, for instance, also to offer a specific groundwork for testing and optimizing products and production processes, for large-scale demonstration that would allow you to explore new processing technologies. Also, FSCP could contribute to achieve the co-objective that my colleague Eric already mentioned, to allocate at least 70% of the total eligible cost to investment in companies with a focus on SMEs. This means that the whole part of the costs of the eligible costs that you would dedicate to the SMEs as recipients of financial support to third parties will become integral part of this 70% that you must somehow dedicate in your proposals to investment in companies. Next slide, please. And here's some more technical information about the rules for financial support to third parties in the I3 codes. As it was already said by my colleagues, we're happy to announce that the co-funding rate for this cost category for financial support to third parties will be 100% for the codes that were now published in May 2023. All other cost categories remain with a co-funding rate of 70%. This is a novelty. Another novelty is that the cost for providing financial support to third parties cannot exceed 30% of the total eligible costs. I say novelty because we already talked about a maximum of 30% in the previous I3 codes, but it was 30% of the total grant amount, and now we talk about 30% of the total eligible cost, which obviously gives you even further possibilities to use financial support to third parties if your application is designed with it. The costs for financial support to third parties are allowed only for grants, meaning that you cannot distribute financial support to third parties in form of prizes to the SMEs. The maximum amount of financial support to third parties per recipient of financial support to third parties, meaning per SME, cannot exceed 60,000 euros. 60,000 euros in each project, meaning if there are several projects in I3 with financial support to third parties, an SME can get 60,000 euros from one project, 60,000 euros from another project. It can be less also per project, but not more than 60K. Of course, double funding cannot take place. The recipients must be SMEs that are established in the regions covered by the consortium, or, and here another novelty, in another less developed region, or in an outermost region, no matter if the outermost region is less developed region or in a region in transition. For more details, I warmly invite you to consult the section 6 of the call document, where you will find already the statements that we've just talked now and have seen together, but there are also some additional instructions with regard, for instance, to the calls that you publish. They will have to be published for at least 2 months. They will have to have a clear European dimension. Another important point is that in your applications, we expect to see a list with the different type of activities for which the third parties may receive financial support. I also warmly invite you to consult the I3 model grant agreement, and in particular Article 6.2.D1, and also Article 9.4, that will give you even further instructions about what we expect to see in your proposals. I wish you good luck, great reading of all these articles I've just mentioned, and I'll be happy to take some questions, if any, after our presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Milena, and many thanks for insisting on really the purpose of the financial support to third parties under the I3 calls, which is very different from what you heard from Christina in the co-fund. And this is not the only difference between those two calls, and that's why I will give the floor to Valentina, who will explain the key differences between the two calls, because when you hear the two presentations one after the other, I think it's quite difficult to somehow understand what the purpose, what the objectives in general of the calls of the instruments are, and at the same time how they together contribute to the innovation values. And with this, over to you, Valentina. Thank you.
Thank you, Denisa. So I will try to do my best to summarize a little bit what my colleagues have already presented, and in order to allow you to see the differences and comparing the two calls. Next slide, please. So we organized those two slides with summaries in order to show you the main aspects you have to focalize. In terms of objective, the I3 instrument we want to promote smart economic transformation, meaning a transformation in the territories based on smart specialization, where the smart specialization is the key for cooperation. And we want, of course, via I3 to promote place-based innovation and interregional investment in value chains. The final goal is to achieve the cohesion objectives and to reduce the innovation divide. In terms of co-fund, the objectives are different. We want to strengthen research, innovation, investment policies, interconnecting EU innovation ecosystem actors, and supporting cooperation at program level. This sort of cooperation at program level should be implemented via joint activities in the framework of a joint action plan. In terms of delivering mechanisms, in I3, the instrument support financial and advisory support for investment in companies, technology readiness level 6 to 9 in terms of innovation projects. And we want to support in general innovation deployment in less developed regions, commercialization and scale up of innovation. In the co-fund, as I was mentioning, the purpose is to have a cooperation at program level And basically, the idea is that we mobilize funding, we leverage resources, and we promote all possible synergies at different levels, regional, national, European. Here, given that we are operating under Horizon Europe, the project, the innovative project, can be supported only at technology readiness 6, from 6 to 8. Next slide, please. In terms of challenges and thematic priorities, you can see here from the slide that I3 is focusing on key EU priorities and EU most burning challenges, including deep tech innovation. All those challenges are addressed, of course, building on strategic S3 areas identified in different regions. And on the other hand, in terms of challenges, in the co-found, again, the work program and the context mention relevant thematics and technologies, including deep tech. So you can see that we have tried to align in the goal what is written under the two contexts. And those technologies must be critical for EU value chains. And we mention a particular focus on the 5 challenges that you see here on the slide. In terms of thematic priorities under I3, we focus on the twin transition, green and digital transition, and we have also a focus in terms of priority on smart manufacturing. In the co-found, the context mentioned green and digital transition again, so you can see the similarities. And it's also mentioned net zero objective and resilient societies. An important thing is that in I3, we ask to focus on only one thematic priority, only one focus area. In the co-found, there is you are encouraged to focus on one, but depending on the challenge, there is a little bit more flexibility in order to address the specific challenge. And finally, in terms of consortium composition, in I3, it is essential that the coordinator is a no-profit organization. We have different requirements depending if you're applying under Strand 1 or Strand 2A. Under Strand 1, we ask for 5 legal entities from 5 different regions coming from 3 eligible countries. And we want to have at least involved the 2 less developed regions. If we are applying under the Strand 2A, we ask for 3 different regions and 2 eligible countries with at least 1 more developed region. In the co-found, we have the same rule of 5, but here we are targeting national regional authorities from different member states. We are not using the cohesion criteria to identify the regions, but we use European Innovation Scoreboard and Regional Innovation Scoreboard to identify moderate, emerging regions, strong, and innovation leaders. Another important thing is that under the co-found, you need this long-term financial commitment expressed in a letter of intent. And in I3, the letter of intent is more related to the pertinence and the coherence of the consortium with a specific smart specialization priority. Next slide. In terms of project implementation, under I3, we are talking about multi-beneficiaries projects, similar to in innovation actions under Horizon in terms of the type of activities to be supported. And we are focusing on concrete business and investment cases for interregional innovation investment in companies. So the final recipients of the grant, at least 70% of the grant, must be companies, in particular SMEs. Under the co-found, we have two types of activities: core collaboration activities that can be defined in terms of funding scheme as coordination and support action implemented under Horizon. And here the project is expected to deliver joint action plans and joint calls, a program of joint activities. And the second component of the project implementation is innovation actions. Is delivered via innovation actions, meaning the project that will be identified after the joint goals and that will identify at least 3 projects to be implemented by multi-beneficiary consortia. The financial support to third party, Milena explained how it works under I3 very clearly. In I3, the financial support to third parties is not compulsory. It means that it's up to the consortium to decide if they want to use this possibility or not to complete the value chain of the main investors already involved in the consortium. In the co-found, the financial support of third party is compulsory element of the project implementation, because it's the way to identify the sub-projects that will be financed, the joint interregional project that will be supported via the co-found. The other important element is the intensity of support. In I3, we cover 100% of the cost of the financial support to third party. In the co-found, we only cover 50%. And the grant value in the financial support to third party in I3 is maximum 60K per entity. And in the European Innovation Ecosystem, every recipient can get up to 600K per recipient, we said, but also per proposal. It means that if the same recipient is involved in more than one proposal, more than one project, cascading project, they can get a maximum amount of 600K. And that's all from my side. Next slide is about useful links to our instrument. And please be aware that you can send out your questions via the functional mailbox. And we will publish once a week an update with all the answers to your questions. Thank you very much for your attention, and happy to reply to your questions if needed.
Thank you, Valentina, and thank you to all the colleagues from the I3 team. And now I think we are coming to the moment where we can answer the Q&As, the questions that came through Sli.do. Voilà. We are getting. Let me start with the first one. Are the new I3 calls restricted to participants from those regions that have submitted their interest to become a regional innovation valley? I give the floor to Ramunas.
Easy reply, no. You are not restricted, and if your application is successful as part of following the evaluation of your proposal, you would become your regional innovation valley. So there is no restriction.
Okay, second question. Thank you, Ramunas. Are strands 1 and 2A only at NUTS 2 level? If not, need to emphasize this. Widespread belief that NUTS 3 can't take part. Ramunas, Eric?
I can start the requirement for consortium member is a legal entity. So the legal entity is located somewhere. So for the consortium composition, what matters is the entity, where entity comes from. So if it's entity coming from NUTS 3, but of course NUTS 3 is also a part of the NUTS 2 nomenclature, so you just need to watch that. So
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Eric, do you want to add anything, or Valentina?
Well, I think we mentioned somewhere that it's the most appropriate NUTS level, so I think this explains it as well. So if NUTS 3 is the most appropriate, then it's not
So
3.
it's also the level where the body responsible for smart specialization is located. So depending from one country to another, this competent body can be at NUTS 1 or NUTS 2 level. Depending on the country, you have to see where is your competent body for smart specialization. Is the criteria.
Thank you. Thank you. The second question, does the 70% co-funding rate apply to all beneficiaries? Would it be possible for the consortium to finance the 30% of a partner? Eric.
Yes, so indeed, so the 70% rate for, well, at least for the underfunding, well, for FSTP is 100% now. For 70% is indeed the co-funding rate for the other cost categories and for all entities. However, what then the consortium internally agrees, that's nothing that the Commission is involved in. So that's up to you to decide. But from our side, we'll indeed co-fund 70% for all entities and 100% for FSTP.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, very clear, thank you. Could you provide us with a clear definition of national and regional authorities, because there is no comprehensible definition?
I can attempt that if it helps. So I think what colleagues need to look at, just read the call document. I think it's rather clear there, and there is a link to the so-called smart specialization responsible authorities. And if unclear, you can always find, and we're happy to provide also later on the link to the managing authorities that most of the time coincide with the smart specialization authorities, national and regional, at the regional levels. So not too complicated. It's public law bodies most of the time, if that's another side of the question.
Thank you, thank you. If a regional authority decides to apply both for the EIE and I3 calls, should choose the same thematic technological area of cooperation. It's also a very straightforward answer.
Indeed, it's. I can also jump in here. No, there's no relation. So the coordination is indeed happening at program and instrument level, but applications could be separate. So, and it doesn't need to be the same thematic technological area for both goals. So if you apply for both, it could be different.
Perfect. Thank you, Ramonas. Next question. In the new strand 1 call, and the following is stated: at least 2 legal entities must come from less developed regions. Can this also be transition regions? Also very clear, very simple.
Indeed. So if I can answer, indeed not. I mean, the minimum criterion is 2 less developed regions. And doesn't prevent transition regions to participate in addition, but they do not count towards the eligibility criterion.
Perfect. Many thanks for that. This I think we saw. Are the I3 calls restricted to participants? This we already answered. Now it's a bit jumping here. The funding mechanism for beneficiaries is based on grant or lump sum. Also very simple, Eric.
Indeed, it's a normal grant. There's no lump sum involved. So,
in relation to the themes, how specific does the proposal need to be, Eric?
Sorry, I didn't read.
In relation to
the themes. Well, this is a question that the independent neutral experts will answer. I mean, this is nothing we can, that's up to you to decide how specific to be. I mean, you have 60 pages to explain it and to make clear that, if we have 4 award criteria, you need to show quality, relevance, cost effectiveness, and impact. and up to you to decide how specific you can be, because you have only 60 pages.
Can I add something, Denisa? It's important to underline that IT is focusing on concrete investment projects. So the team is very clear if you have identified the main investors that are part of your proposals. So you have to focus on the investments that you will be at the core of your proposal, and identify if it is rather a green transition topic, or a digital one, or a smart manufacturing. And you have to take the prevailing dimension. A project can be relevant for the digital transition, but it's mainly addressing a manufacturing topic. In this case, you will have to choose smart manufacturing.
Very clear, very clear. Thank you, Valentina, for clarifying that. We have one more policy or question.
Indeed.
Whether 100% funding will be considered for beneficiaries in the future.
I can take that. I don't think so. First of all, as we're trying to explain, there are two elements here. First, 70% is already a very high funding rate, and it's quite high for projects that are close to the market. So that's what I was trying to highlight. So it is unlikely that 100% will be considered or even applied. I don't think that's possible for this type of intensity is possible for close to the market projects.
And here a very also important question that we also previously discussed a lot, but the large company about large companies that are important actors of European value chain. So what is the i3 approach to them? Or they will come as a project partner?
They are very much welcome as a project partner, as they are by definition part of the ecosystems and part of the value chain. But let's not forget that our focus is obviously in SMEs, and the investments have to take place in the SMEs.
And there's also Valentina, if you want to
if
add
I can complement. Multinationals or large companies can be part of the proposal if you are able to justify how the value chain of small companies is connected to the value chain of large companies, in particular in less developed regions, where multinational can be the driver for the development of a new value chain.
Perfect. Thank you, Valentina. It's really about the innovation diffusion channels from the large companies towards the SMEs, and it's really about the SMEs, and being embedded in the value chain driven by the large company. Next question. Again, I think we need to make it clear. What is the connection between the regional innovation valleys and the i3 calls? Ramunas, maybe.
It's simple. It's two sides of a coin. So, regional innovation valley is an umbrella. It's part of a new European innovation agenda. So, i3 calls are part of regional innovation valleys. So, and successful applicants would become the so-called regional innovation valleys.
Thank you. And the very last question: whether the academic sector, like universities, can become beneficiaries.
Yes, they can definitely. They're also part of the value chain, but let's not forget that we are targeting projects at TRL 6 minimum. So the activities that the universities would contribute would take place in that level of the TRL.
And they certainly, and they need to be for cooperation also with the businesses. We need universities as part of the ecosystem, exactly, to complete also the innovation diffusion channels from RTOs, universities, and towards the companies. We have one more question. We have let's say 5-10 minutes more for a few questions. So let me take another couple of ones. The endorsement letters from all relevant regional national S3 implementation bodies requested upon the submission of the proposal or after. Eric touched upon that in the main presentation, but let's please get back to that.
Yes, so indeed, again, this time the deadline for the call is decisive, and it holds true for the coordinator where the endorsement letter is obligatory, but also for the optional endorsement letters. So if you want to be recognized as an Innovation Valley, then please do it before the call deadline and submit the letter.
Thank you. The following question is similar to the question on large companies. Startups, SMEs and small mid-caps are eligible to FSTP provided by the selected project. Do we have Milena to answer that?
Yes, sure. Well, the answer is yes. We all know that the SMEs are defined in the EU recommendation 2003/361, and indeed there are three types that we can distinguish: medium-sized, small, and micro enterprises, and all of them could be recipients of FSTP.
Thank you, Milena. And one more question on the FSTP while we have you here. Don't disappear yet. Costs for FSTP are not allowed as lump sum.
Yes, they're allowed as lump sum, but when you can provide lump sums to the SMEs if you define that in your codes that you publish to select the SMEs. But when you come to report the costs to the European Commission, to us, then you can't report the cost as a lump sum. You will report the costs that have really incurred for the FSTP. But the answer to this concrete question is yes, you can provide lump sums to the SMEs.
Thank you, Milena. We have one question that maybe we would need more detailed information to be able to answer. It's about the quadruple helix. We have a situation where a coordinator will be a foundation representing public authorities and users and RTOs, rest of partners, mainly companies, whether this is eligible. There are also other eligibility conditions we have.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I think
the geographical ones.
Yes, I think what is important to understand is what you really want to achieve, but the colleagues complement. But what we really want to have is in the consortium that supply and demand is represented and is implemented as such in the project. So how you do that and how you construct in the consortium can be through different means in different parts of the quadruple helix. So
the most important thing is that the coordinator is a non-profit organization. So the foundation can be eligible, but if it is a non-profit.
Provided, yeah. We have one question that touches on the associated countries and on a big difference between I3 and the co-fund and the European ecosystem in terms of treating the associated countries. And the question is the following: are EU border regions eligible? How cross partnerships within the Black Sea and the Middle East North Asia region will be encouraged via the I3 instrument?
Valentina, you want to, I think it's pretty...
It's very straightforward.
They can apply, yeah. They're eligible.
But not the MENA regions.
But not outside EU, obviously. It has to be one of the, in the 27 EU countries.
Yeah. Other countries can be associated to the program. At the moment, we do not have any associated country. So it means that if those areas want to become associated to I3, they will have to engage in the dialogue with the Commission to have this status recognized in order to become eligible.
Perhaps one can complement that if there is an entity from a region or country outside the EU 27, they can do so, but they have to provide their own funding to that.
I have a question that perhaps can be for Valentina. What is the real difference between strand 1 and strand 2A on the level of activities and outcomes?
Yeah. So strand 1 target EU value chains, and the final goal is to make EU value chains more competitive at global level. So we want to build on the potential of smart specialization to make the EU value chains more resilient toward the global competitors. In the strand 2A, the focus is on developing new value chains in less developed regions. So the activities are more innovation diffusion activities, We want to have less developed regions connected to the value chains of more developed regions. This is a little bit the difference. In terms of, you need to link the activities to the final goals that we want to achieve. So it's up to you to decide. It's always about promoting innovation, scale up of innovation, bringing innovation results to the market. Those are the activities, but with a focus on one end on global competitiveness, on the other end on creating new value chains in less developed regions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Valentina. And let's take a last question. If I understand it well, or here, let's take the Latvian one. Latvia is considered as one region. If Latvian agency participate within cascading grant action exchange of experiences with others, can 30% come from the ERDF or RRF? Also very clear. I don't know, Ramunas,
Yes.
Eric, whoever wants to answer, take that.
Ramunas, I think it's a yes, but please.
Yeah, I'm still reading the question and not fully.
I was
clear.
too fast. Sorry. Latvia is considered as one region. If Latvian agency participates with cascading grant, an exchange of experiences with others, can the 30% come from the EISMEA or RRF?
I think the answer is very clear. In case of cascade funding or financial support to third parties, it's 100% covered by the grant already. So there is no need for additional ERDF or RRF. So if that was the question, so I think this is the more attractive part of the new call. So
yes.
I hope that's sufficient for the
very
for
clear, Ramunas. And a very last question I would like to take. If I read, and I'm not certain whether I interpreted properly, if a region does not know whether to apply to the regional innovation valleys call, I guess it's the COFAN call and the I3 instrument, how can they determine which one is the best for them? Valentina, Ramunas?
Okay, so they do not want to apply to the Regional Innovation Valley call, so meaning under European Innovation Ecosystem.
If you don't know, if your region and you're hesitating, what would be the factors that would make you, pick one or the other?
Yeah,
this is my understanding.
Yeah, if you are a region, if you are a region, if you apply, what you have to keep in mind that if you are applying under I3, you need to identify concrete investment projects that must be in the core of your proposal. If you do not have already identified investment project, it's better if you go under European Innovation Ecosystem, because there you can select the project, investment project later on via the financial support to third parties.
Maybe we have Christina who wants to add, or Ramunas.
Can I just, before Christina maybe thinks, I will chip in just very simple suggestions to those listening. Agency also did quite a very useful summary of already funded projects. So you can look at the summary and the synthesis of these projects, and you can see what kind of projects fits under I3 already. And you will see a huge variety of ideas that got funded. So those who are interested to follow the same thing and they have a project or ideas that are close to the market, I would say I3 instrument is the most obvious one. I cannot comment much for the EIE calls, but maybe if a question was related to the call for expression of interest, so that's a completely different avenue, and it's not linked to financing. So under I3 instrument, we provide financing to your ideas. So that's what we can offer. Of course, it's a competitive process, so you have to go through the extensive evaluation. But if you're interested in funding, please come to I3.
Thank you, Ramonas. Christina, are you with us? Do you want to add something or?
Yes, in my presentation, I mentioned that actually in EIE, we want mature projects that the applicants should already have reached an agreement on the areas and the main activities that they would like to go on, meaning that this thematic and technological area should have been already agreed. However, there will be this horizontal coordination and support actions part, in which the applicants will have the chance to further concretize what they want to do in order to feed in the preparation of the interregional projects.
Thank you, Christina. And I remember there was one question I wanted to take at the very last, and this will come. Where they can find, where potential applicants can find information about the responsible smart specialization bodies. Ramonas, can you help us with that, please?
I will gladly share. I have a link to the managing authorities, and we will be updating also the link specifically to the smart specialization authorities as part of our community of S3 community of practice project that I noted in my presentation.
Excellent, excellent. Many thanks, colleagues. Many thanks to everybody. We are really sticking on the timing. I would really like to thank to everybody with for the answers, for being with us here. Please note for the participants that the recording together with the slides will be posted on the EISMEA website right after the event. You can already find on our website a set of frequently asked questions that are related to this course. And once the event is over, we would appreciate you fill in the post-event survey that will appear on your screen. But before that, still we have time to close, and the floor is goes to Nicola de Michelis, the director in DG Regional Policy. Nicola, over to you.
Thank you, Denisa. And thank you for this very interesting and very dense morning. I would like to share with you a few reflections. The first is that we should not underestimate the fact that for the first time, cohesion policy and Horizon Europe are organizing a joint system of calls for instruments that have different logics, different budget, different rules, and Valentina made it very clear in her presentation. They're targeting different actors, but nonetheless, there is an attempt to try to align and focus those instruments, those different instruments, on similar challenges and objectives. And this is because for the first time, the Commission has, in the new innovation agenda, explicitly recognized that regions are indispensable actors in designing and implementing research and innovation policies, and that disparities in the field of innovation and research are a problem for the Union and need to be addressed. The second reflection is that the same new innovation agenda recognizes that the smart specialization strategies, those innovation strategies that regions have developed over time, remains the organizing principle of regional R&I policies. But since the world has changed in the past few years, there may be a need to rethink a bit whether the priorities that were identified in those strategies are still relevant. In many cases, this will be the case, and regions will be spot on some of those new emergent challenges, whether it's in the field of semiconductors, of renewable energies, of net zero technologies, of rare materials, whatever. Others may, on the contrary, adjust and think a bit whether there is a need to adjust, to realign those strategies. And this is really the meaning of the regional innovation valley concept, saying, well, there are new priorities out there. Let's see let's see how what we do and the two calls that we put at your service would help readjusting things a bit. The third comment is that what in essence the two instruments are trying to do is to develop interregional collaborations and value chains in strategic domains. Ramuna's made it very, very clear that the scientific and technological quality of the proposal will be important. But what will be equally, if not more important, is how, to what extent those projects, those proposals will serve those strategic sectors, that collaboration, and how that will impact and will contribute to reduce the innovation divide. And let me conclude by saying that in all this, you're not alone, because despite the overwhelming amount of information that we all got, at least overwhelming for me, overwhelming amount of information that we got this morning, there are a number of instruments that we have set up to help you coming together and construct those proposals. The first, Ramuna said, it is the Smart Specialization Community of Practice, which provides very hands-on assistance and and allows and facilitate exchange of good practices, and may in the end allow to meet different partners in designing common projects. One of the strand of the I3 is very much focusing on capacity building, how to ensure that all those actors are able to construct and put together those proposals. And finally, I think that despite the fantastic efforts of colleagues this morning, maybe not all questions have been answered, and therefore DG Regio, the agency, DG RTD, we all remain at your disposal to for any additional questions related to the call. And with this, I would really like to and hope that more small and medium-sized enterprises, more research and innovation organization, regional authorities will take the opportunities to present in collaborative way ideas and proposals under these two calls. Thank you very much. Back to you, Denisa.
Thank you, Nicola, for these words. And I agree. I mean, we need to close the divide, and we are ready here to help the regions, the companies, the intermediaries, and happy to also guide you further and answer all your questions. With this, this is the end of the info session. Many thanks for your attention. Many thanks to everybody. And let me wish you a very nice rest of the day. The best of luck.